They're
I
just generally scuttling around. They're all right. I don't mind if they're, if they're over there having a nice time, I'll leave them to
nah,
it.
nah. Things that scuttle in general. Travel with purpose. That's what I say. If you can't,
How do you feel about lobsters?
fine, absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They walk
absolutely.
forwards. That's all that
Yeah.
Yeah,
matters.
they walk forwards
Yeah.
with purpose. Absolutely fine. Hello there, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Football Manager Therapy. I am your host, Rich Owens, and joining me on this week's podcast, the twins are back, ladies and gentlemen. We have the delicious return of D-Boy Plays. We have the equally wonderful Steakety Bakety. He's back as well. D, how are you, friend? It's been a hot minute.
It has been a hot minute. I just want to say to start with, thoroughly enjoyed last week's episode. Thoroughly enjoyed it. It made the drives to and from work go by in mere minutes. It was an absolutely fantastic episode from the lot of you, and I'm doing all right. It's been a couple of ups and downs in the week, but overall not too bad. Not too bad. It's been all right. Have you been? Rich?
I've been all right. I've been all right. I'm now the proud owner, now the owner of a 9-year-old child, which is terrifying. I've kept something alive for 9 consecutive years. It's a new personal best. So that's been a joy. I've been in charge of birthday parties. It's been loud. It's been, oh my goodness, it's been so loud. It's been aggressively loud. If you're not a fan of constant noise, don't get into the kid having game. It's not the one for you.
No,
stay quiet, stay serene. But it's been lovely. It's been nice. He's had some presents and we've had a nice time, and some family have been over, and now they've all left and it's quiet again. So I'm really, really happy. It's been ever so lovely. People in my home, even though I invited them, I'm still dubious about it. Can't be having that. Somebody I would love to have in my home, and you're welcome at any time, by the way, is Steakety. How are you, friend? How's it going?
Can I come round now?
Absolutely.
I'll head there right now.
Well,
do with a cup of tea.
Well, could you give it an hour and a half before you set off, so just we can?
Yeah, all right. We'll get the podcast done first. But yeah,
Cheers,
no,
mate,
I'm very good. Thank you, Rich. Yeah, not so bad. I had a trip to Cardiff this week to watch my team play. We were drivel is the best I can possibly say how we were. So glad to be on the podcast to kind of forget about the whole real life football and focus on the digital football. It's better.
It's a nicer place, isn't it? It's a much nicer place to be. As a supporter of an equally disappointing football club, I can fully appreciate where you're coming from. Look at us, 3 lads supporting honest, hard-working championship teams, some of whom are better than others.
Yeah, some of whom will still be championship teams next season, and some of whom won't.
I mean, our recent results, it's just been draw city. That we can't win. We're not losing, which is nice, but we're just not scoring goals. So I wouldn't be surprised if gaps started closing around all of us at some point. Pompey to start scoring some goals and getting some points. Us to just slowly but surely fall down. And maybe Wednesday,
No, meet us in the middle. That's absolutely fine.
Middle, yeah, is that all right?
I said at the start of the year, give me 12th, 13th, no drama, no fuss, and we are sat in 13th. And I'm thinking to myself, that's fine. Yeah. We'll win a game, we'll lose a game, we'll stay here. Everybody's happy. No need to panic. Everything's going to be fine. Mid-table mediocrity, no nonsense, no managerial sackings, no stadiums exploding, like nothing. Just give me peace, calm, the occasional 3 points. Everyone's happy. Please and thank you. That's what I love. So isn't it though? I mean, if we had to segue this in some way, shape, or form, you could make the compelling argument that when it comes to a football team, digital or real life, if you want that security, you can't look further than a good goalkeeper. Because if you're confident in your goalkeeper in a game of football, you're going to panic less. You're always going to feel like you've got that security net. You've got that safety blanket at the back. You've got a competent shot stopper between the sticks. And if you've got yourself one of those, everything might just be okay. So we should talk about them. Should we talk about goalkeepers this week? Does that sound reasonable, fellas? Should we do a bit of goalkeeper chat? It's the return. Older listeners of the podcast or people that have been here for a little while may remember a little while ago, I believe it was Callum, Kev, and myself. Miss you every day, buddy. He's still alive. He's just not on the podcast anymore. Which makes me sad.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel I have to go full Alan Partridge now. Just for the listeners, I'd like to confirm the United City FM is still alive. He's very well. He's just not on the podcast. We miss him. We talked about our perfect striker on Football Manager. We talked about the concept of the perfect striker. We talked about 5 key attributes that we looked for in a striker on Football Manager. And we promised back then we would do that. We would do it again at some point in the future. It is now the future. The future is happening right now, fellas. What I'd like us all to do this week is we've gone from the front to the back in terms of the starting 11. I would like your 5 key attributes that each of you look for in a goalkeeper on Football Manager, because there are a fair amount to choose from. I'd like the 5 that stand out to you when you are looking at signing one. Steakety Bakety. Let's start with you, my friend. You are looking at a goalkeeper. You are scouting. One pops up, little scout report comes in. It's for a goalkeeper. What is the first thing that your eye is drawn to on that goalkeeper's lovely display of attributes?
Yeah, there's plenty of fantastic things that you need in a goalkeeper. But literally the first thing that my eye is drawn to is rather helpfully in the top left of the attributes on most skins, as it comes first alphabetically. The first thing I look at when going for a goalkeeper, and thankfully you can get it quite high, low down, is a aerial reach of your goalkeeper. I like his hands to be able to reach all the corners of the goal without too much drama. That benefits both the amazing world-class goalkeeper, and it also benefits the kind of non-league average goalkeeper all the way through. That you always need someone with good aerial reach, in my opinion. You've got to be able to come for the crosses and claim them high. You've got to be able to save at any angle from the goal. And it's just one of those things that I look at before anything else, and then I'll go and look at some of the attributes that we will mention throughout. And it's just, it can be quite deceptive as well, because a 15 might not be that good for a goalkeeper, or down lower towards the 13s and the 12s isn't a very good aerial reach attribute, in my opinion. If you're looking at 17, 18, 19, that's the key area. So if my goalkeeper doesn't have, I'm going to say minimum 15 aerial reach, I usually move on. It's one of those things where I'm just like, no, swipe right, left, which is the no. I don't know. I don't use these silly apps. But yes, I would be swiping off them if they don't have a good enough aerial reach. I don't know about you guys.
So essentially what you're looking for there, Stakey, is Mr. Tickle. That's your ideal goalkeeper, which is reasonable. Very, very reasonable. Oh, he's got some big arms on him, Mr. Tickle. He really does. They're up there. Whoa! For the audio listeners, my arms are above my head. There's not a ghost. Everything's fine.
Although it is Halloween
it's the
week,
spooky Halloween podcast.
Yeah.
It's now haunted. There you go. Dee, what about you? Are you an aerial reach man? What's is that number 1 on your list, or do you go elsewhere in terms of your? Does it even make your list at all? A bit of aerial reach.
Well, this is the tricky thing with this list, because it's only 5. I was thinking, what would be my key 5, and I figured one of you two was going to bring up aerial reach. The first thing that I look for in a keeper, and this kind of goes down to, I guess it's based on a real life thing. It's, in real life, you want your goalkeeper to be able to stop shots. I think that is ultimately the most important thing for a goalkeeper to do, is his shot stopping ability. So for me, I guess that falls under the category of one-on-ones. right? Being able to deal with those, especially again in a one-on-one scenario, being able to stop the ball from going in the back of the net. That is essentially the only reason I sign a goalkeeper. I like my goalkeepers to play in the goalkeeper role. I don't really experiment with the sweeper keeper thing. I've kind of, I've ignored it for a few years. I've tried it once or twice and always sort of gone, no, I don't like this. I don't trust this. I'm going straight back to regular goalkeeping. For me, like primary thing, one-on-ones, because all else fails if because my key thing with a team is my defense has to be solid. But if there's for some reason it gets through, I want to know that my goalkeeper is going to be able to stop whatever gets through my air quotes world-class defense, for the level. This is the best defensive line I've got. Oh, someone's got through it. Keeper, your time to shine. And if they can deal with a one-on-one, I'm a happy man. So yeah, one-on-ones is kind of the first thing that I look for. Anything above 15, 16, kind of like the aerial reach, as long as it's, if it's in those, for me, I've got to change the color of it to like blue. So if it's in that blue color for me, then I'm like, great, cool. This goalkeeper is going to be, going in the right direction for me. So yeah, one-on-ones.
I rate it very, very highly. Again, for me, when I think about one-on-ones, when I think about a lot of the goal scoring opportunities that teams that I play against create against me, it seems to be more from open play than it does from set pieces. I would say I concede more from open play than I do from set pieces, with the exception of, as we have all seen, anybody who's played FM24 this year, the free kicks from deep, parallel to the box, back post headers go in. That's just the way the world works. Doesn't matter if it's a Champions League final. Doesn't matter if you've downloaded a tier 10 database. Back post headers from deep free kicks are a menace, an absolute menace. And I would say boycott them if I didn't really heavily rely on them sometimes. So that's fine. I'm willing to admit that I am part of the problem. That's fine. But when I think about the actual chances that I concede in game, a lot of the time, if you've got those strikers, and it's the kind of strikers that a lot of us talked about when we did this episode before, quick, in behind the back line, creating those one-on-one opportunities. If you've got a keeper in net that's got that really, really good one-on-ones attribute, then you feel slightly more confident than just knowing that the striker is just going to slot past them. So that's that. I would say the ones that always stick out to me when I did the shout out to the mad scientist, his retro database, the 98-99 season a couple of years ago. Inter Milan Ronaldo scoring 120 odd goals a season for me. Like he broke through the back line and dribbled around the goalkeeper. The only keepers that he struggled against were ones where, in hindsight, looking at the opposition goalkeepers after the games, the ones with those high one-on-one attributes. So it's a good one. I like aerial reach and I like one-on-ones. I'm going to buck the trend here slightly. I'm going to buck it frequently this evening. Don't you worry. I'm going controversial with my goalkeeping choices.
Wait.
It's interesting. It's very interesting because in terms of what I've noticed from the two of you there, you've gone for two key ones early doors. You've gone for aerial reach and you've gone for your one-on-ones. Now, in hindsight, comparatively, when we did this episode last time around, I think the three of us, Kellum, hello, Kevin, Callum. Who's Kellum?
Kellum and Cav,
yeah, Callum and Cav. They love orange soda. They can't get enough of it. Both Callum and Kev and I all went for physical attributes. They were the first things that we were looking at for our strikers. All three of us picked a physical attribute. I think some of us first and second. And then it took quite a long time before we started to move into the mental and the technical attributes. Both of you early doors have gone goalkeeping. And I like that a lot because for me, it's a position where goalkeeping attributes, I would say, of the three are probably one of the most important sets. Outfield players, I think physical attributes and mental attributes can overcompensate for poor technicals. But with goalkeepers, I don't think that's the same. So the fact you've both gone for goalkeeping is an interesting one, and I agree with it, which is why I'm going to choose a mental one first of all. Because of course I am. Because of course I'm going to be different. Because it's my podcast and I can do what I like. Concentration is key for me in a goalkeeper, especially as with the save I've played the most this year, as the clubs I've managed, as their reputations have gone up, those league campaigns have almost, in some circumstances, become the least important part of the saves. Like where I am with Porto at the moment, my main focus is, generally speaking, European football at the minute. I would like to do better in Europe than I would in the league. But in order to get into Europe consistently, the best way to do that in Portugal and to bypass the knockouts of the Champions League, for example, is to finish first in the league. So you've still got to win the league. And I'm playing teams that on paper I should be beating 6-7-0 pretty much every single game. But if you've got a goalkeeper who's not paying attention with that low concentration attribute, when teams start to push against you in the teams that are harder to break down, you're 1-0 ahead with 10 minutes to go and they go, right, let's throw some bodies forward. Let's try and play for a draw. Let's take 2 points off Porto. If you've got a goalkeeper that has completely given up on what's going on around him, I don't think, even if you've got the best goalkeeping attributes going, low concentration goalkeepers are going to concede goals. That's where I look at it. I mean, the literal description for the attribute is, this attribute reflects the player's mental focus and attention to detail on an event by event basis. It may well be that your goalkeeper isn't facing a huge amount of shots if you're a high reputation team until that 75th, 80th minute. If you just attack, which a lot of people like to do on FM this year, if you're just playing it, if you play a high line, you play that attack, and the opposition aren't going to be in your half. When they eventually do, you want a goalkeeper that is as switched on as they should be in the first minute of the game if they're a non-league team playing against Manchester City, because they are expecting to concede shots, they're expecting to face a lot of shots, and they need to be alert to them. So for me, concentration is the absolute key when I start looking at goalkeepers. I'm looking at Thomas Cahoot, my starting goalkeeper at Porto at the moment. His concentration is 17, which is his joint highest mental attribute. And I stand by it. There you go. So for me, concentration is the one.
No, I completely agree with you. And it's interesting that you've both touched on ones which I think you can kind of see in the match engine. So concentration, I find, if you have a particularly low concentration, and you can have great attributes in all the other ones, but if your concentration is particularly low, I've noticed more goals conceded in the last 5 minutes of a game, for example, or rebounds. Goalkeeper parries it to a striker, they're not getting up fast enough to the second, and as it said, their event by event basis, they've saved the first event, they've lost concentration during the second event. And it's interesting that you guys have both gone for something that I feel like you can see. And one-on-ones are particularly this year and last year, I would say the last 2 years of Football Manager, one-on-ones have been quite big. And the year before that, I think it was FM22 was the year where no one could score a one-on-one and players just ran through on goal and put them wide all the time. Didn't feel like you needed it then, but in the current generation of Football Manager, one-on-one's hugely important, and I completely agree with both of you, and both of yours were on my list. So damn you and Blast for stealing my ideas.
We're very, very sorry, Stakey. You've already raised an incredibly astute point. Of course you have. It's you. Yeah. Both of those things, I think, one-on-ones and concentration, especially, as you say, very, very relevant to the match engine. And I think it's harder to measure those metrics against goalkeepers in the match engine than it is the outfield players, for sure this year. So I think that for me was definitely, again, it's been a reoccurring theme for me when I've been looking at these attributes and thinking, right, what do I need from this goalkeeper? I'm applying it to those actual match engine scenarios. I'm applying it to what I see the goalkeeper doing in the game. And there are some things that, again, on paper make complete sense for a goalkeeper, but I don't see as much of it in the match engine. So to me, it's not quite as important, because even though it may be one of those, that it's one of those attributes that's doing the work under the hood, isn't it? Could be one of those, but because you're not seeing it in real time, you disregard it a little bit. So again, I rate that from you, Stakey. Of course I do. Of course I bloody do. Dazzle me again, mate. Attribute number 2 that you look for in a goalkeeper. What have you got?
Okay, I am going to go with perhaps a controversial one, because I feel like there are 2 types of people that play Football Manager, and there are the the sensible people that want their goalkeepers and their defense to be sensible and calm and collected. And then there are the mentalists that want chaos. And as much as I love chaos when it comes to strikers, I don't want my goalkeepers to cause chaos. So I'm going to go with low eccentricity. I want it to be low. My current goalkeeper on my Portsmouth save, where we are one of the best teams in the world, I have a goalkeeper with 2 eccentricity, and that is one too many, in my opinion. I want it down. I'm going to train him to make it go down. I hate it. I hate it when goalkeepers are marauding around their penalty area and diving around and trying to anticipate too much. They can do too much, and that's the thing. And I think it throws off some of the other attributes as well, that I'm sure we'll talk about some of the mental ones that you've started to talk about. But the ones that we've mentioned already, I think are massively thrown off by if your goalkeeper is too chaotic. And there have been goalkeepers in the past, particularly if you play on key highlights or maybe into extended, you'll see that they are the mistakes that cost you goals, where the goalkeeper's doing way too much. And I think that is why I want the eccentricity as low as possible. Now, I've seen people that choose, particularly in draft mode, 19 eccentricity. And those people scare me. Alistair, I'm looking at you. You do that. Scary people. But, whatever you prefer, but I can't stand it. You've got to be low eccentricity for me. Certainly in this match engine, anyway.
Hard agree. It will shock you to hear that it's on my list as well. Eccentricity. I'm looking at Thomas Cahoot here. He's got 1, and I think that's fine. I will allow 1, 2 at a push. Carlos Camini, get out of here. Can't be doing with you, Carl. His was always obscenely high, if I recall. Big old Carlos. Back in the day, on the much significantly older FMs, he was a wild and eccentric goalkeeper. Just can't be doing with it. I can't be doing it. The chaos frightens me. It's not for me. It's absolutely not for me. My mind always goes back to the likes of David James, for example. I think I want to say it was against Forest a very, very long time ago. He went off to have a whinge at the linesman twice while the ball was in play. And Forest midfielder Ian Wone scored 2 absolute worldies into an open net, because at 2 different points during the game, he just went off to have a little chat with the liner about some decisions that in the build-up to the goals or the build-up to the chances. Like, no, I want my goalkeeper switched on and not doing anything silly. What about you, Dee? Do you appreciate a maverick renegade between the sticks?
Absolutely not. I haven't got a low eccentricity on my list, but as soon as you said it, I was thinking that is what I want from a goalkeeper. I don't want someone that, like you say, is just gonna. No one wants a wild card. Nobody wants the wild card who's just going to go off and do their own thing. Like you say, go and talk to the linesman or try something fancy that they just stop it. You're a goalkeeper. Stop the ball with your hands, because you're the only one that's allowed to, and then hoof it. Pulis ball style. Kick it as far as you can away from your goal, and then wait for your turn again. That's all I want. I don't want you, trying skill moves. I suppose that time with flair as well. But I just want you just do your job and get on with it. That's all I want from a goalkeeper. That's all I want from all players, really.
So you want D clearly operating a cheese counter at Tesco's style approach to goalkeeping. Right, take your number, have a go, give it 5 minutes, have another one. It's not fun, is it? Although I can't see, now you've said it, Steak, I can kind of see the appeal of a very eccentric goalkeeper in PvP, because everyone's doing nonsense in PvP, aren't they? Unless you are Limo and you've got your 4-4-2, because a Limo 4-4-2 is a thing of beauty. Everybody else are right. Here is my asymmetric 17 striker formation. That doesn't have anybody playing on the left-hand side of the pitch, but somehow we direct the play down there. And it's won me 99 consecutive Champions Leagues in Slovakia in my offline save, so it's going to work in PvP. Throw a completely insane goalkeeper into the mix for the opposition team, and then just see what happens. They're breaking up the play on the halfway line. Big switches. That's what I want. That's what I want. That's the player trait that I want for FM25 for goalkeepers is wild card. Yeah.
On a mild tangent, I was involved in a draft this week. It was Kearney FM's he's getting
Mhm.
married soon, so we did like an FM stag do. You're absolutely
Nice.
right. The tactics completely they're not normal. I played with 3 Trequartistas and 3 pressing forwards.
Yes.
All
That's
winning
the chaos
midfielder,
we love.
2 liberos, and just a normal centre back. It's like goalkeeper on normal as well. It's like, you two just stay back. We're gonna go and have fun. And I think I went 5-0 up in a game in the first half because it was like rugby. I'd got 3 players. They'd get the ball as soon as they'd lost it. Someone's there just to pick it up and just keep going. It was great, absolutely
Love
hilarious. It just wouldn't work in a normal game though.
No, absolutely not. You chuck a goalkeeper with 19 eccentricity and 15 flair into the mix as well, and that's a recipe for success, or not. So it's subjective, really, isn't it? Success, but in that context, definite win. So you mentioned there, Dee, you've not got eccentricity on your list. What have you got on your list? Give us attribute number 2, please.
I mean, I'm gonna go for the one you just said, because that is next on my list. Concentration, almost the antithesis to eccentricity. I want someone who is going to be paying attention to the game and not disappearing. I mean, it reminds me again. I'd always, with a lot of attributes, I always trying to think, okay, well, what's the the real life equivalent for this? Obviously, concentration first of all is just having that, like you say, general awareness when on the pitch. If you're, if you've got nothing going on as a goalkeeper, if you're someone like Edison, who doesn't have that much to do in a team like Man City, who are just relentless and attacking, but then all of a sudden there's that one break and he's got to be immediately switched on, even though he's had nothing to do. There was I think there was an interview with Aaron Ramsdale. I think he brought up at some point that during games, he loses concentration. He's not paying attention half the time. He gets really easily distracted by the fans are chanting and he'll join in and little things like that. And that would be a big red flag for me as a goalkeeper, someone that just isn't paying attention to the game. So yeah, I've got concentration as my second one, and essentially echoing everything you said, really. That's, I want a goalkeeper who's just paying attention, really. And so kind of ties in with, a lot of the attributes we'll be picking, but because it's such an isolated job on the pitch, when their moment comes, I want them to be ready and I want them to do it well.
Absolutely. And you know what? Somebody will know the answer to this. Somebody who is watching or listening to the pod will know the answer to this. That interview with Aaron Ramsdale is one of the things that whenever I look at concentration in a goalkeeper, that recently has popped into my head. Has Aaron Ramsdale played a game for Arsenal since that interview? Because I have a funny feeling. I think there was direct correlation between him saying, yeah, I switch off during games, and then suddenly David Raya becoming Arsenal's #1 goalkeeper, and eventually Aaron Ramsdale going out to Southampton. Yeah. I think there is direct correlation between those things. It's a very, very interesting thing to choose to talk about very publicly when a large part of your job that you are paid hundreds of thousands of pounds a week to do is based on you just staying switched on for essentially, in the nicest possible way, a maximum of 180 minutes a week. So it's a choice, isn't it?
I wouldn't be surprised if that was the point where Arteta went, oh no, I need to use Raya more. Oh, okay. Well, we just won't tell Aaron. We just won't tell him. It'll be fine. He's lost. He's already forgotten. He's already forgotten the conversation.
It's gone. Wasn't paying attention to what he said, was he? The worst he could have said was, I don't like it when I have to use my hands, to be honest. That's just, I mean, David De Gea might say that, but
it's true. Get away with it, though.
Playing in goal. God, it's so boring.
Can I play up front?
If there's one thing I just love doing, it's just picking balls up out of nets. It's just, oh God, I can't get enough of it. Cannot get enough of it. And not winning titles as well. That gives me energy. That gets me out of bed in the morning. Just not winning the Premier League makes me really happy.
He's been relegated enough.
He's going to be relegated again this season. Yeah.
Why am I on a train to Southampton? What's happened? Bless him. Yeah, it's such a big one, isn't it? It's such a big one. Again, there's something that I'm looking at, and it's something that, again, it's match engine adjacent for me. And it's, as I said, aerial reach is one of the ones that, again, it's up there, isn't it? It's one of those. But for me, I have got aerial reach on here, as I did say earlier. I don't want to go into too much detail about it because, Stakey, you've summarized it very, very nicely. But for me, high command of the area is something that, again, especially because of set pieces are so much better over the last couple of FMs, since they've really revamped the set piece engine, and that's become a lot nicer, and you can do so much more from your set pieces now. Goalkeeper with a good command of their area can be a difference maker. You know, one of the as we saw in the FIFA World Cup, you know, we saw Sebastian Coates became one of the highest scorers for Sporting over 3 years for reasons because of set pieces. And you know, they all said at the time, "Yep, stick a man on the line, get him to mark the goalkeeper, and then get your best header near post, and they will score." If you've got somebody with a good command of their area, they are setting up that defense a little bit better. They are taking charge of the penalty area, and as it says, coming for crosses and commanding that defensive line. That, to me, considering how good set pieces are now, and considering how precise you can set them up when you are creating your attacking set pieces, to me, one of the biggest counters to that is having a goalkeeper who knows what they're doing and is really putting in the command of that, you know, commanding that area, especially from those set pieces, coming for those crosses as well. Because again, as we all know, if it's from open play, get somebody down the byline. Doesn't matter if it's your winger or your fullback, get them to the byline, cross the ball back in. If you've got a goalkeeper who's not afraid to push through some players, get down, pick up that ball, you're going to concede significantly less goals on Football Manager. So for me, command of area is one of the big ones. I like it. I like it a lot. And again, using Big Thomas Coat as the point of reference here, his is 18 at the moment, and it's got a lovely little yellow arrow next to it, which shows it's getting ever so slightly better. So roll on the 19s for Big Thomas. That's what I would say.
Yeah, it's such a good point. I literally, while we've been having this conversation, all I've thought is this is possibly one of the only positions in FM where I really closely associate with what I want from a goalkeeper in real life. And yeah, command of area is exactly, because I feel like there's not really, I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, there's not really a meta with a goalkeeper other than as long as they're above 6 foot, you're all right, probably, you know. But yeah, command of area is so. While you were doing that, I was looking at my goalkeeper at Napoli, and again, really good command of area, 17, and definitely one of the reasons that we had so many clean sheets that season. Outside of the defense being solid, just him stopping corners. I don't think we conceded many set piece goals. So yeah, really good attribute.
Take charge. Don't be afraid to be that man at the back, having a little shout at everybody. It's what they're there to do. It's absolutely what the goalkeepers are there to do. Take charge, have a little shout, get everybody in line, keep some clean sheets. Everybody's happy. It's a biggie for me. Steak, is that one that's possibly made it onto your list, or have you got something different for us coming up?
Absolutely, it made me onto the list, and I think I'm going to build on it as well, because you mentioned how they need to be in control of their defense. They need to position their defense in the right place. They need to know what's happening around them, and they need to be able to make changes on the field. And rather, one that probably gets overlooked, to be honest, when it comes to goalkeepers, because I potentially in real life, I don't agree with them being captains necessarily. It sometimes is a bit of a backup captain is quite sensible for a goalkeeper because they're always on the field. However, they can't do the outfield talking to the referee, which is very important in being a captain. However, leadership is massively important when it comes to goalkeepers for that very reason. Mostly for set pieces, they are moving their defense around. They are telling the defenders what to do. They are anticipating what's happening going forward and coming into their penalty area. They need to be aware of who is where. And if you can't lead your team and you can't lead from the back, then you won't be able to command your area. And I think it really ties in with the command of area attribute. And there's a couple of goalkeepers I've had this year, which I've not been able to pinpoint why I don't like them in the engine. And I think it's the combination of command of area and leadership. So I had Dennis Simon. I think it's Simon if you pronounce it German, but it's more funny to say Seaman, isn't it?
It's a lot funnier. It's a lot funnier. You're right.
Yeah, his command of area is 13 at his peak on the save I'm currently at. He no longer plays for me because he annoyed me, and I've sent him off to the Saudi League, where all good goalkeepers go to get paid £1 million a week. And also his leadership is 11 or 12. In fact, I think it's up to 13 now in the Saudi League. Whereas I'm looking at my current goalkeeper who concedes less than a goal every other game. And his command of area is 17 and his leadership is 18. And he just positions all the defenders, especially from corners. I barely concede a goal from corners. He positions them all in the right place. And I think that's really key. And doing the analysis for the podcast this week, I was like, why is that? Why is that? And I think it might be leadership. It might be a conspiracy theory. I might be being a bit crazy here. The comments might absolutely roast me, but I think leadership's really important. Don't know about you guys.
I love that. Genuinely, I love that. I didn't factor in leadership at all when I was looking at this, but now, and again, I will read out the blurb. This attribute reflects the player's ability to influence players around them on the pitch. Teammates will often rally around them. I feel very silly for not factoring that in at all, because it's huge. It's absolutely huge, isn't it? Like that's massive. That is absolutely massive. And again, I'm now going back and I'm trying to think of some of the great goalkeeping captains throughout footballing history. But you've got the likes of Peter Schmeichel, for example, who took over the captaincy at United during a very, very, took it away from Roy Keane, who was, the antithesis of that big, loud, commanding voice in the middle of the pitch. And of course, this was a time when it wasn't just the captain that was allowed to have discussions with the referee. It was everybody. But if Roy Keane was shouting at somebody, a lot of other outfield players were suddenly around that player shouting at them as well, and the referee, and the linesmen, and the opposition players, and sometimes their own players. Like it makes complete sense. And then looking at this from a FM context as well, like why wouldn't that be something that you're looking for in a goalkeeper? I have a tendency to, when I'm assigning a captain at a club, especially if it's a club I don't know the players, I don't really understand the club that well. You've just moved them on a journeyman. San Etienne, for example, when I ended up there earlier in the year, I have a feeling that Etienne Green was one of the recommended captains or vice captains. And I just said yes, because in my head, I was like, well, he's always going to be on the pitch. So if my captain's injured, the vice captain is there and he's ready to go. And there will always be a captain on the pitch. There's not going to be any of this. Oh, no, all 3 of your captains are injured, so we're just going to give it to somebody else this week. Always had somebody on the pitch that was going to be a captain, because for me, it was just more ease than anything else. It's not necessarily that I was super, super into. But looking at the effect that leadership has in game, that makes a lot of sense to me. Captain meta. That's the new thing now. See, we talked about there not necessarily being a meta. I think leadership meta. I think that's what we're now looking at for goalkeepers. I think that genuinely, that could be a thing that I'm leaning towards. Frustrating looking at a man like Thomas here. He's got a leadership of 5, so it's probably not going to happen with him, but my next goalkeeper, because he is getting transfer listed. Doesn't matter how many clean sheets he keeps now moving forwards. He's bad at leading. I love that, Steak. Genuinely love that. Is it one that made your list by any chance, Dee?
It's not, but almost in the same way Stakes just built on what you did. I'm going to try and build off what he's just said. And again, you talk about leadership, obviously being able to, control what's around you. I've got communication because again, like I said a moment ago, it's one of those positions that in real life goalkeepers, that's what I want from this position. And a goalkeeper that can, in a set piece can shout at his defense and say, do this properly, be there, and have that leadership and good communication to make sure that everybody around him is organized in real life makes sense to me as an important attribute for a goalkeeper to have. And again, while we've been doing this, we've just been flicking through luckily my last 3 teams in my save have been Napoli, Barcelona, and Marseille. And I happen to have three of the best goalies in the saves, 1 at each team. And all of them have got really good communication. They've almost, without fail, all of them are very good at organizing their defense. And it even says the attribute reflects the goalkeeper's ability to communicate with his defensive line and organize the defensive side of the team. And that's something I value in all of my teams, even just going away from the goalkeeper side of things. When I join a new team on any journeyman or whatever, the first thing I try to do is make the defense good. I don't, I'm like, fine, if I don't score loads of goals this season, it's not the end of the world. If I don't concede lots of goals, I'm happy. And having a good goalkeeper who can basically get his defense to do exactly what I want them to do, he's always going to be a solid pick. And yeah, I'm looking at Ignacio again at Napoli, 16 communication with 14 leadership, so not as high as maybe Steak would like, maybe one a little bit higher, but he's again, I think that ties into why the spell at Napoli was so successful, was because we didn't concede a lot, because he was telling his defense, go and do this. Anything that did make it through, he could deal with the one-on-one scenario. And it's, I think, and all of it all ties in. It all ties together. But yeah, communication for me, most important in game and in life.
Absolutely. It works. It really, really does. I mean, again, we'll read the description out for the people. This attribute reflects the goalkeeper's ability to communicate with his defensive line and organize the defensive side of the team. Why wouldn't that be essential? Why wouldn't it be? But it has to be. It absolutely has to be, because again, if you're not doing that, you are going to concede more chances, and the more chances you concede, the more likely you are to concede goals. So again, yeah, it just makes sense, doesn't it? It all makes complete sense. I really like this because, again, very much like the strikers, everything we're talking about for these players ties in. None of these attributes work on their own without the others around them, which again I really, really like. So it paints a very complete picture. And I think the things that we're talking, if you could go out tomorrow and you could set up scouting parameters for a goalkeeper, these make sense. These absolutely make sense. So okay, this just makes me really happy. Look, us just talking about things and sound like we know what we're talking about, and it all makes bloody sense. It's lovely. What a lovely way to spend an evening.
And now you're going to say flair, right?
I'm going to say flair, absolutely flair. Yeah, I want all of my goal kicks are Raboners. That's essentially what I'm looking for. Look, I said earlier there might be a bit of controversy with some of my picks, because again, I'm looking, because I know this is go round number 4, but again, we've already had, so I said there's a bit of doubling up that's already happened, and as we've said, eccentricity, which Stakey talked about, was going to be one of mine. I don't really want to dwell on that one too much. Sorry, lads. It's my podcast. And I said I wanted 5 key attributes that you look for when you are signing a goalkeeper. My next one isn't really an attribute. Sorry. But for me, it's as important, if not more so, than all the ones we've talked about tonight.
Go for it.
It's height.
Yeah.
I know it sounds silly. It sounds very, very silly.
I think I know where you're going with this.
But no, it is literally, it's just height. Because I have sold very, very good goalkeepers this year that have been 6 foot or under. I could have the perfect player. You could show me a goalkeeper that has 20s across the board in all of these key metrics. You could combine all of our lists, all the attributes that we talked about, we want to be perfect, and you give me 20s across the board for all of those. If that goalkeeper is 5'9", he is never setting foot on the pitch for me. Because for me, if he's not big enough to physically fill the goal, it's a moot point. It's a moot point for me. I look back and I think I can think of one 6 foot or under goalkeeper from the last 20 odd years, even if that I look at and I think was a phenomenal goalkeeper. Height didn't necessarily affect their game. That's Fabian Barthez. Fabian Barthez was a very small man comparatively in goalkeeping terms, but his height was never an issue. Like Laurent Blanc didn't really have to go on tippy toes to kiss the top of Fabian Barthez's head. He could just. I think don't get me wrong, Laurent Blanc was like he was 6'3", 6'4". He was a big boy. Was Laurent Blanc?
Yeah, around that.
Yeah, he wasn't a small man by any stretch of the imagination, but a small goalkeeper just doesn't do it for me. Like somebody like we've had mad scientist databases like Jorge Campos, phenomenal. Actually, I would actually wager that if we went back and looked at an old mad scientist database and looked at all of these attributes we've talked about tonight, Jorge Campos would have them in spades. Phenomenal goalkeeper. He was 5'7".
Yeah.
No, just no. I'm being sizist. I've dodged an actual attribute, but again, for me, it's so important to me. It is so important. Thomas Cahoot here is 6'2", and I was on the fence about him when I signed him. I was like, is that quite? Even though he's 6 foot and over, and that's fine, but is he quite enough? Because again, he could have 50. He could have 20 aerial reach. You know, he could have 20 jumping reach. If he's 5'8", what's the point? What's the point? There you go. I've done it. I've gone off tangent.
I thought you were with the height thing because height was one I toyed with picking because it is something like if I'm looking for a goalkeeper, I tend to put 6'2" minimum. Really, 6'2". I'm going with that. But I thought you were going to. Was it at Dortmund? In your journeyman in former glory, I'm sure it was either one. I'm sure it was one of your teams where you swapped out a goalkeeper for like a cup game or something like that, and then we looked at the keeper and he was 5'10".
Yes,
and then you forgot to take him out in an important game, and every goal was above head height.
Yep, every goal was above head height. Yep, that has stuck with me. Yeah. That has absolutely stuck with me. I think that was at Porto. It was one of my, I think it was one of my very early, I think a season one at Porto, one of my backup goalkeepers was very wee. And it's just unfair. It's just unfair. just hard to take seriously. So it's not, height isn't technically an attribute, but it is so important to me. I would rather have, and it all comes back to the point we were making earlier, is that with a goalkeeper, the goalkeeping and the mental attributes are more important than the physical attributes to me. But height trumps a lot of that for me as well. Give me a 6'5" goalkeeper who has got above average attributes across the board in goalkeeping and mentals than a 5'10" goalkeeper with better ones. It's just how I look at it.
It's one of the handful of things that all FM players and most women on Tinder have in common. 6 foot and above is important. If you're too short, you don't get to play, unfortunately.
Also, have to have your own gloves. Yeah, put your own gloves.
Yeah, it's a tick box on every player, definitely. Yeah,
absolutely. Being big. Thanks for being big, fellas. There you go. That's me just discriminating against a whole range of wonderful goalkeepers. But soz lads, just be taller. Get some lifts. That's what you need to do. You'll be absolutely fine. Steaky, what else have you got for us, friend? Because we're getting towards the end of our lists now, I believe.
Apart from feeling absolutely inadequate now after that last one, I do agree with you though. I have to say I had a goalkeeper in FM 21 and I was trying to scroll back through my messages in chat on my network save of whether I could find a screenshot of him to send to you, but he was very similar in that he had a lot of 20s like you mentioned, and he was 5'9", and he was the best goalkeeper in the world when I sold him to another team who didn't have to watch him in the match engine and were just simulating their games. But as soon as you watched him in the match engine, he got lobbed every 5 minutes, and I absolutely hated him. He was 5'9", and he was the worst thing I'd ever bought. I think I spent £70 million on him and sold him for 30. I was like, get out, you're terrible. But yeah, no, completely agree. However, there is one thing that I think we've overlooked a little bit as we've gone through so far, much like a tall person overlooking a short person. And I'm sure Callum would be I think this would be his first choice had he been on the podcast today, because he opened my eyes to this attribute for goalkeeping. And it was one that I thought, yeah, it's kind of important, but it's not that important, right? And I now focus on it. I'm going to read you out the description and you guys can tell me what it is, because let's make a game of it. Why not? This attribute reflects the ability of a player to read a defensive situation and position themselves accordingly. It is not used in attacking situations. Rather, it is used to determine how well a player identifies a threat, when to deal with it, and whether or not they are in the best position within their current tactical setup.
positioning.
It is positioning.
If it's not positioning, then that description uses the word positioning far too
No, it's bravery.
Strength. Yeah.
Yes, positioning. I think this is one of the most important attributes for a goalkeeper. And I think it was Maldini that said, if I ever have to make a tackle, then I have already made a mistake, when he was talking about his positioning and anticipation of situations. And I think it's the exact same situation with a goalkeeper. You give yourself a better opportunity to save the ball, no matter how bad your reflexes, handling, and all the other attributes we've talked about today are. You much improve that situation if you are positioned correctly. By narrowing the angle at the right time, moving at the right time, you are more likely to be hit by the ball, even if you're not the one making a manual save. It's just hit you, but you've given yourself that opportunity. And I think positioning is so important that I would no longer sign a goalkeeper that didn't have at least some level of positioning. I would say it's not quite like aerial reach. You don't get non-league goalkeepers who have 16 positioning. They tend to be around the 11s and 12s if you really want a good one. But yeah, currently I've got 17, and I'm already looking at that and thinking that might not be enough for a world-class goalkeeper. You need positioning, 100%.
Yeah, love that. Completely agree with you. Completely. And you see it in the match engine. Sometimes, you're about to face a chance, or one of your strikers is through on goal. As you're watching it unfold in front of you, you have a better idea of whether your striker is going to score just purely based on where the opposition keeper or where your keeper is stood as that striker enters the penalty area, as that shot's about to be taken. You just know. You just know, because if they're completely central, that ball's being put either side of them. If they're closing down the angle, if they're moving forwards ever so slightly to narrow the gap between them and the striker, much higher chance of making that save. So yeah, again, it makes complete sense that would be one of the big ones. Makes complete sense. Again, looking at Big Thomas here, 16. So again, he's doing something right. Which again, it all just makes complete sense, doesn't it? Are you a positioning aficionado, D?
I was going to say, if you've picked that to make Callum proud, there's definitely there's been something in the Nuzlocke that's made us all think the same, because my next one was also positioning, and because for me it ties in directly with the one-on-ones thing that I picked earlier. You've got to be in the right position to deal with a one-on-one. If you're, like you say, okay, it's just you and the striker and you're still on your goal line and they're at the edge of the box and you're just standing there going, well, go on then, have a go. And then they just go, well, I'm just going to get closer to the goal. If keepers already, preparing themselves for that one-on-one scenario, I feel like they make more saves. And look, again, like we have been just looking at like goalkeepers that we've got in our squads. I'm looking at my current goalkeeper now, and I'm even thinking, compared to the two that I had at Napoli and Barca, he's not that good at it, and it's got me questioning things about him. But it is something that I value, and he's young, to be fair. So I'm hoping that he'll evolve into a keeper that's got good positioning. But it's surprisingly low, and he does concede from silly little errors. So yeah, I'd want a keeper that can get himself into the right place at the right time and then deal with it, because that's, to quote Roy Keane, that's his job.
That is his job. It's just nice to hear Roy Keane being mentioned on this podcast without the phrase hairy fraud following closely behind. So this is lovely for me. We miss you this week, Jeb. We really do. It's also a really, really nice break for me. Yeah, it's huge, isn't it? It's one of the really, really big ones. And again, when I was looking at my list, it so nearly made the cut. So nearly made it. But there is a compelling argument for it to be included over any of the other attributes that we've talked about this evening, if they've been missed out as well. Because for me, it's just so vital, just having a goalkeeper that knows where to stand and what to do. And I used to play goal 5-a-side with a lad, and we had a goalkeeper called James. And whenever somebody was attacking from an angle, and he frequently did it, strikers approaching, comes towards the penalty area, he was on his near post. If he was, when the chance was coming in, if he was on his near post, he would always just take the smallest little step just away from it, just leaving a little gap there. And 99 times out of 100, he just needs to put his foot down because the striker would always go low at his near post. Go, oh, he's left a gap there. But he was doing it on purpose every single time, giving it the big uns. Yeah, look at me. I'm a very smart goalkeeper. I'm watching it. And I was like, that's just really clever. How has nobody figured this out yet? Because that's the 4th time you've done that this game. It's like he's going to dive back towards his near, but he just did it. It was so subtle. It wasn't, he wasn't like the full matador, like, ha, have some space, please. Why not shoot there? I'm not even looking. Like it wasn't, that great, but it's, low eccentricity as well, which I really liked about him. Low flare. But yeah, it makes sense. It completely makes sense. Yeah. Good positioning equals good goalkeeper. I think the only other one that because again, there are some here, and I'm looking at things that key goalkeeping bits and pieces for a lot of people that we haven't even touched on. Things like the actual distribution of the ball, your kicking, your throwing, your vision hasn't even factored in for any of us. And for me personally, it's not key for me in a goalkeeper because my ball goes out to the fullbacks. I play out from the back. I don't like long goal kicks. The amount of chances that I concede through poor distribution, even from goalkeepers that have really, really good attributes in those areas, you've got good kicking. They've got good vision. They've got good throwing. I don't know, one of the massive centre backs that's marking my striker is going to win that header 9 times out of 10. And then I'm about to face another chance. So that they haven't even factored in for me at all.
I think that's partly to do with the match engine, though, because again,
match engine is also a thing.
Really ping the ball over the top very often. It's not set up to be a super counter-attacking sort of football manager this year. It has been in the past, and there have been definitely years where I have wanted a goalkeeper with 17 kicking because the ball over the top to a speedy striker has been the way to get through. I think that was also simultaneous the year where one-on-ones were terrible, though. But But yeah, it's also a match engine thing. Currently, you don't need the distribution that much because most of the time you're distributing to the players around you.
Yeah, I think that's very, very fair. It's one of those things like you don't necessarily get the best out. Like Edison, for example, is one of the, when it comes to his distribution, arguably one of the best goalkeepers in the world when it comes to his range of passing and his vision. And that's something that's very, very hard to replicate in Football Manager at the moment. Most goals that I concede that come from opposition goal kicks are the infamous missed headers from centre backs, which again, a lot less prevalent than they were a couple of years ago. There was a point, I think it was FM22, where if you saw a highlight, if there was a missed header, you're like, I'm about to concede a goal. And the text at the bottom is going to come back to, oh, they should have done better. They missed the chance to intercept. They missed their header. And now look at them. They've conceded a goal. Idiots. Oh, they're so silly. That's in my head. That's what the text definitely said. Definitely what it said. Yeah. Thanks, Miles. Make me feel pretty bad about it now. It's just for Rich. Idiot. Pick better headers the ball. So yeah, it's interesting. It doesn't, but it's hard to replicate that in FM. It's, you don't see these days, you don't see that, those long goal kicks. Don't see it, even though it's still there in the distribution instructions. Play over the defense, even if you play it to the target, to the target forward. Again, it's not something that I use a lot of. Kev, massive big meaty man up front enthusiast, don't even see it that much from him in the network games, for example, when he was in charge of Spurs and Fulham and Brighton. Technically, like, you just didn't see it from him. You just didn't really see it from him. So again, it just shows that it's not necessarily as effective as it once was. The one that I really, really like, and again, it's another goalkeeping one. And interestingly, none of us have gone for a physical attribute here. None of us have picked a physical one, which is, again, just shows us that we're right. Goalkeeping and mental attributes are more important than physicals. It's the reflexes. Reflexes for me are biggies. The attribute reflects the goalkeeper's ability to react to unpredictable events with a high success rate. And I thought I was going to sneeze. I didn't. I was no.
Bless you.
Oh, you got me. Cheeky sneezes. There are unpredictable events this year. My goodness gracious me, there are. And again, it comes back to set pieces. I take most of my 90% of my corners on our short corners. I'll bring a man close. They do a little bit of magic by the corner flag, work the ball into the box, and then whatever happens, happens. And those chances are really hard to defend against. But again, goalkeepers with high reflexes, goalmouth scrambles, bit of nonsense. And again, especially non-league level as well. You see those goals in the Vanarama and below. If you've got the custom databases, for example, you see those goals, you see the goalmouth scrambles, you see bits and pieces happening. A goalkeeper with high reflexes just statistically has a better chance of reacting to those shots better, reacting to those headers, tipped onto the crossbar, just float, headed back in. They might just get a hand or a foot or their body in the way. So for me, reflexes is another big one, just because of the unpredictability of some of the chances that are created in Football Manager this year. High reflexes make me happy.
Yeah, you've got to agree with reflexes. I think that's almost, along with one-on-ones, it kind of is like the quintessential goalkeeper saves, goalkeeper reacts quickly. And it makes me instantly think of David James, who a lot of clubs will remember for being rubbish and calamitous. And as we've already mentioned, a bit eccentric. I remember him at Pompey for having the most unbelievable reflexes. People would be heading the ball from a yard to his right, and he'd just wave his hand. For the audio listeners, I waved my hand up suddenly and tipped the ball over the bar out of absolutely nothing. And just these most incredible saves that made him look world class. And whenever someone says, who's the best goalkeeper of all time, I always say David James, but only for Portsmouth. And then obviously say someone more sensible like Buffon or Neuer or something. But yeah, that's what quintessentially is David James for me. Those massively underrated reflexes that just get those saves that you just think, wow, amazing. How did you save that?
There you go. And yeah, you have to agree. It's great reflexes, and there you go. We've also seen the full David James redemption story tonight as well, and there is now a fairly high percentage chance that this week's podcast is going to be called Contextually David James, but it also might not be. You never know. In this very specific, best goalkeeper in the world, in this very specific set of circumstances, is undoubtedly David James. Fantastic. Look, I think if you went out and used what we've talked about today as a set of search parameters for finding a goalkeeper, regardless of the level that you are playing at, if you find yourself a goalkeeper who has really, really good concentration, aerial reach, command of area, is above 6 foot, like you're gonna have a good time.
Yeah,
you're going to have a good time. You're probably going to concede less goals, and you will have a wonderful time doing so. I've had a really nice time talking about goalkeepers today, fellas. It's been a lovely old chat. I've enjoyed that. Thank you very much. If you're listening to this and you're thinking, well, but you've not even talked about the things that I like decision making or bravery or anticipation, which again are all could make a compelling argument for any of those things. I really, really like a goalkeeper who's got a really good first touch. Why haven't you talked about first touch? Talk to us about it. Let us know in the comments on the Discord. Go on, type one out now. Don't swear at us.
Type penalty taking. I resisted so hard saying penalty
taking. Yes.
After penalty taking last week, penalty taking should have been on there.
Goalkeepers on penalties. That's what Steak likes.
Do it. Do it.
Keepers on penalties, especially ones that can't do it. Oh, it's so much fun. So, yeah, that's what I'm into. Signing Chevalier for Ajax, him making his debut against the Lille team I just bought him for, getting him on the penalty that won us a point. Oh, those are the moments. Those are the moments. He's a real man. He's not a horse. It's just named after a horse. It's just named after. He's not Les Dennis, who's definitely not a horse either. Might be a horse. Just when you finish this podcast, just Google "is Les Dennis a horse" and just see what comes up. Just say
you might be surprised with what you find out.
You might be surprised with what you find out about Les Dennis. Fellas, we're not going to wrap up just yet because I think there's a couple of other little things we might need to briefly discuss first. Firstly, is Les Dennis a horse? Yes. But moving on from that, I think if the people that have listened to this podcast have enjoyed our voices, and think, oh, I really like those voices, I'd like to hear more of those voices in other scenarios. Is there anywhere that you can think of that people might be able to hear our voices, the three of us, talking about Football Manager on a comparatively regular basis over the next few months? Anything spring to mind?
Maybe some sort of YouTube-based event, possibly.
Yeah, sounds like.
There'd have to be a few of us involved, though, like our voices.
Yeah.
Maybe some other people doing other things that.
Absolutely,
maybe
yeah.
their faces on the screen, whereas ours are more vocal based.
Yeah,
that would be quite nice.
Which in my case was definitely the right decision. Definitely the right decision. Some form of match of the day based YouTube program, but not called that. Not called that, but something close to that. So actually quite close to my heart. Wordplay based, which again speaks to me on a deeply personal level. It'd be really good if Steve Hood had organised it as well, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think he's the man. He should be the face of this thing that we should definitely get involved with. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, can I shock you? Les Dennis is definitely no, it's not Les Dennis. That entire scenario that we've just spontaneously created exists, lads. It's Steve Hood's match of the delay, the 20-person Premier League save, which has been announced at the time of recording. The competitors have been announced today on Steve Hood's YouTube channel. The three, look at us, lads. Look at us. We're now football commentators, aren't we? We're only bloody commentating on the games as part of a much larger, wonderful team of commentators. If you like our voices and want to hear us talking about Football Manager on YouTube, I don't know why I've just put inflections on the sentence. It was unnecessary. If you want to hear us talk about Football Manager on YouTube, you could do so via Steve Hood's YouTube channel for Match of the Delay. At the time of recording this podcast, I believe that my two colleagues here, Steak, Dee and Dee, have recorded your first commentary for your first games. How was it, fellas? Did you have a good time?
Because I've not done that. So outside of, I guess, on stream commentating, which is, I feel is always slightly more tongue in cheek than what you would probably do in a professional sense, because I'll always there might be a curse word, or I'll call a player an idiot, things like that, or whatever I'm feeling in the moment. But I was a little bit nervous to dive into it. Obviously, I think it's totally worth saying to start with. I think this is a wonderfully organized, and I love the ambition of doing something like this. I think it was Second Yellow Card earlier in the year did a relatively similar thing. I can't remember what he called it, but it was like they had those old football through the years, and they used to do a season thing. I think it's an interesting sort of like weekly version of something like that, and having a match of the day thing. I think it's an amazing thing that Steve's trying to do, and I think we're all very excited to be involved in it. But it was loads of fun. It took about 30 takes because a highlight would finish before I'd finish my thought, or I'd flub a word, or I would go in the wrong angle with something, and then I'd just stop myself and I go, that doesn't make any sense. Sorry, Steve. But then he'd never hear it, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, but loads of fun. How'd you find it, Stakey?
Yeah, absolutely, lots of fun. Really, really enjoyed getting my teeth back into commentating. Those of you who don't know my history, I did broadcast journalism at university with the sole intention of becoming a football commentator, before realizing that I had to do all this horrible journalism-y stuff first, and then I lost interest in it. But I've done audio descriptive commentary for Portsmouth Football Club, and commentaries in the past for small projects like the FA Youth Cup, I think it was, final at one point. So I was absolutely loving the opportunity to be involved with this. It's been a load of fun, really interesting to see how the different voices from lots of different backgrounds all piece together, because I feel like some will be very BBC, hello, I am John Motsony kind of thing, and some people will be much more like the Rush commentator from EA Sports FC, and I think that's going to be a very interesting and fun dynamic. And already we've seen the first video from Hood where they've decided the teams, and it gave you an introduction to what's going to happen, and the production levels are fantastic. All the graphics that they've used so far are really, really good. Like, it just looks like it's going to be a real quality piece of work at the end of it, with 39 episodes, I presume, which is absolutely massive. A huge undertaking. Credit to everybody who's involved, and I'm sure Steve will be looking for more people along the line to help with things because it's going to be a lot of work for a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I think it's going to be fantastic, and I hope everyone enjoys it. Most importantly,
Absolutely, I do. Yeah, it's been a pleasure to be asked to take part and contribute to. I think it's got the potential to be really, really, really good fun. I think what for me, it's the kind of thing that is because essentially this has been born of the news that obviously we've got the delays to the release of FN25. So this is generally speaking the time of year where people are either the bait is out normally at this point, and in the run up to that happening, people have been going off and playing other games for a little while as well, just to keep themselves busy in the background. So to have something like this that's been born of what a lot of people have perceived to be quite negative news, it's a really, really exciting thing. And there's some great people taking part as well. He's got a really, really. If you've not looked at the video, we'll drop a little link to. We'll drop it in the description to this video. Have a little look. Have a little click on it. There's a lot of familiar faces in there. There's going to be a couple of people you might not know as well. I think it's a really, really interesting playing field, and I'm really looking forward to getting stuck in. As you've touched on there, Stakey, there's so many different, commentary styles I think people are going to be replicating. I'm going for Jonathan Pierce on Robot Wars. That's the level for me. That's the level for me.
Will
I'm
you
assuming
start with 3, 2, 1, activate. Please do.
Hopefully, Sir Killalot is going to be involved in some capacity.
Sergeant Bash will be making an appearance for West Ham, probably.
Hopefully, Matilda. That was another one. There we go. Just the house robots. Just that's all we're into.
And instead of a final whistle, you're just going to go cease.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. So yeah, massively. Look, I've just been sent my first match, so I'm going to be at the time of recording this. I'll be recording mine tomorrow. But there's some really lovely people involved. Definitely worth checking out. Definitely worth your time. And I think it would only be fair. Should we give it we'll give it time to settle? Obviously, we'll give Steve a bit of time to set everything up, but should we get him on here for a little chat? Does that sound like the thing to do?
That'd be nice.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it? That would be a pleasant thing to do. Match of the Delay, a Steve Hood Football Manager project. Give it a watch. Listen to us. Comment on all the comments. Oh, those 3 commentators, they sound lovely. You should say that about us all the time. I bet they're handsome as well. Oh, I bet they're great looking. Bunch of smashers. That's us. Yeah, do it. You want to. Just before we do a proper wrap up, we've talked a lot about goalkeepers, haven't we? There's been some good goalkeeper chat today. I personally would like a little bit more. Can we maybe squeeze a little bit more in? Because there was talk, Dee, of some goalkeeping based trivia. If I recall,
yeah. What I've got for you here, it is very quick and simple, very straightforward. Very recently on the Y Callum Twitch channel, I was involved in an international quiz that he hosts during the international breaks. He's only done it once. I don't know if he'll bring it back. But he quizzed me on the opposite end of the pitch. Who scored the most goals? Top 10 most goal scorers in Premier League history. And I thought, well, I'm going to test your ball knowledge with goalkeeping abilities. I'm going to ask you, chaps. We're going to do this. AB, taking it in turns, trying to name players in the top 10 list of which goalkeepers have got the most clean sheets in Premier League history.
Ooh, okay.
I'm going to also say this. You only get 1 life. So if you get 1 name wrong, that's fine. But if you get a second name, you are out.
This is going to be over very quickly.
Well, to be fair, I mean, I've got the list in front of me. I mean, for it to end as a 5-all is not unreasonable.
Oh, okay.
But there could be some hiccups along the way. Along the way.
You underestimate my ball knowledge.
To decide who is going to go first, though, in said quiz, I'm going to write a number on my phone on Notepad. I know we've got high stakes here, and I would like for you both to pick a number between 1 and 10. I'm going to start with you, Rich. What's your number?
4.
Steak, what's yours?
If this is a game of highest number and you've not told me, I'm going to be furious.
7.
It was nearest 2. I wrote down 6. I'm holding that up to the camera, and you can see both of the balls. There are all the reflections. So Steak is nearest. So Steak, you are going to go first in this quiz. Top 10 clean sheets in Premier League history. Who have you got for me first, buddy?
I think it'd be an injustice if I didn't include the man who's got more mentions in a podcast that he's got in most people's Premier League 11 all time. It's going to be David James. I'm going to say David James because he is definitely up there.
Yes, you are 100% correct. David James is number 2 on the list with 169 clean sheets.
Oh,
Mr. Owens, you are up.
Now, I know this name is on here, and it's one of a very small amount that I know is on this list.
Mhm.
I feel like he's got more than David James. I feel like this man might be the number 1. I could be wrong, but he's definitely on the list. Is it the man that once tried to viciously end the career of Stephen Hunt by injuring that poor man's knee using his head? Is it Petr Cech by any chance?
It is Petr Cech. He is number 1 on the list. 202 clean sheets that man has.
Incredible. What a goalkeeper. What a man.
Sublime. Sublime. Yeah. Wow. Well done. 1 all each so far. Back to you, Steaky. We don't have to do this in order, obviously. It is just the top 10. So any names that are in there, I will take. But yeah, who you got for me, Steaky? What are you thinking?
Okay, I'm going to go with a man after my own heart, a bold-headed man.
Oh,
I'm going to go with Mr. Brad Friedel.
Brad Friedel is a very interesting one. And you are absolutely correct.
oh,
He is joint 8th.
Oh, lower than I thought.
Joint 8th with 132 clean sheets in his Premier League career. But yeah, well done. That is 2-1 to Steaky. Back to you, Mr. Rich. What you got for me?
See, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because do you go longevity? Because players that just the most amount of games surely would ensure at some point statistically most clean sheets. But then a lot of the really long-serving Premier League goalkeepers weren't necessarily in net for teams that you would associate with clean sheets. I'm going to go for one of the bigger names I can think of, just because statistically he's got to be on the list and he's got to be fairly high up. Is it man like Peter Schmeichel? He's got to be on there, surely.
Peter Schmeichel.
Did he predate most of his clean sheets?
That powerful Dane. I'm really sad to do this, mate. He is number 11 on the list. Oh,
shut up.
No.
With 128 clean sheets.
Okay.
It's a lot of clean sheets. Don't get me wrong. That's fantastic.
But that's the level. Okay.
That's the level.
Okay.
Mr. Schmeichel does not make the cut, unfortunately. Back to you.
Interesting.
That makes me think that this next chap isn't going to be on there. And he's won multiple things and has been at a couple of different clubs in the Premier League. And again, much like Brad Friedel, plays for a nation that you might not expect to be big on the whole quality goalkeepers. I'm going to go with an Australian. I'm going to go with Mark Schwarzer.
Mark Schwarzer is a really interesting shout.
Oh, I don't like the word interesting, man.
It's a worry, isn't it?
Because he is 3rd on the list. Mark Schwarzer, 152 clean sheets.
Wow.
And again, you're absolutely right. He's one of those players that you wouldn't think. I would never have thought of his name. You could have given me 100 guesses and I wouldn't have put his name on this list.
This is going to make me sound like I'm being really, really funny about this now, because he was going to be the next name on mine. It was 50-50 between him and Peter Schmeichel.
Ooh.
And then I was like, it was the longevity. I went down the longevity route. So, wow, there you go then.
There we go. Back to you, Rich. Who are you thinking?
See, that's now changed. I'm now thinking less about goalkeeping ability. I'm now just thinking who was in the Premier League for ages and has a chance. Again, there's torn between 2. If I get this one right, the second one's going to be my next answer anyway. So let's just go for I'm going to go with Paul Robinson.
Paul Robinson.
No, wait,
Oh.
no. Not the no, yeah.
I know
No.
who you mean. The Tottenham.
You know who I
goalkeeper.
mean.
Yeah,
Tottenham
not the
goalkeeper.
West Bromwich Albion left
Not-
back.
Yes, not that one. Yeah, just wanted to make that distinction
No,
clear.
I get it. I get it.
Okay, thank you.
Paul Robinson played for Spurs, got a surprising amount of appearances for England, actually, I think.
Mhm.
More than you'd think. You know. I'll tell you what he doesn't have, though.
Oh, no.
Is it lots of clean sheets?
Lots of clean sheets. He's not in the top 10, unfortunately, Rich. He's not even in the top 20. And now he is number 21 on the list.
Wow.
Clean sheets with
Okay.
86 in his career.
86.
Not even the
86?
hundreds.
Not
Wow.
even done 100, which is
Stinks.
crazy.
Goodness
Absolutely
me.
crazy. But that does mean, Rich, that you got 2 guesses wrong, unfortunately. So that does mean Steak is the winner 3-1.
Smashed it.
I'm going to go through the list 10-1, just so we've got them all in there.
Just before you do,
Go on.
can I? The other one I was going to go for, if Paul Robinson was right, was
Mm.
Tim Howard. Would I still be in it if I'd gone for Tim Howard?
If you'd gone for Tim Howard, you would have still been involved. You would have still been involved.
That's really annoying.
Because in joint 8th, all with 132 clean sheets, is Brad Friedel, Tim
Mhm.
Howard, and Edwin van der Sar.
Oh,
I was going to say Edwin van der Sar next. So
There you go.
I didn't think Van der Sar was there long enough to have kept that many clean sheets.
he was
There
very
you
good,
go.
though, and he did
He was
Fulham
just-
as well.
Spurs.
Of course he
Fulham
did.
and- was it Spurs, Fulham, and Man
It
United?
was United, Fulham, and
Is it Spurs? Am I making that up? I think I've made that up. Because we've just spoken about Spurs.
like you've made up this entire game.
Yeah.
Paul Robinson 86 clean. Paul
Trick
Robinson 86
question.
clean
Number
sheets.
one's Ben Foster. He's actually not. He's actually because they've been scored against the most in Premier League history.
Yeah, just Fulham and Man United for van der
Just
Sar.
Fulham United, there you go. Number 7 on the list, Pepe Reina, 136.
Wow. Fair
Wow.
enough.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another bold man. Excellent.
Another bold
Love
man.
to see it.
It's nice to see us represented somewhere, isn't it, Steve?
Yeah.
And if it has to be in goal, I'll take it.
So be it. I'll
This
take back
is-
our conversation from earlier. Wind resistance. That's one of the key goalkeeping attributes that I'm looking at
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Aerodynamics 20.
Yeah.
Completely. This might be the one I find most surprising on this list. 137 clean sheets for a Mr. Nigel Martin.
Right. Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
That must just be sheer number of games.
Wow.
There's
so
there
many
must be
different
some
clubs.
incredible ratio there.
Mm.
But yeah, he is number 6.
Yeah, I wouldn't have
which
got that
is
one.
Crazy.
No, not a chance.
Number 5, the man with the loveliest hair and the finest moustache, David Seaman, with 141.
Okay.
Mm.
That
I
tracks.
was
Pretty good.
mostly going to say that because I wanted to say Seaman again, but you know.
Yeah.
Is that
I
Dennis's
definitely
dad?
should have.
Any relation?
Yeah.
Probably somewhere. Number 4, we got the top 3. So the only one left to name really. Number 4, David De Gea
Fair. Yeah.
with
he was there for a long time.
147. And for the fact that Man United just released him.
Mm.
And I know I signed him in the beta for Braga. We peer pressured you to taking him to Japan. In your save.
Savesman.
In your
There's another one, Jeb. Enjoy that for the Super Cup.
Have you experienced David De Gea on FM this year? Anyone? Because honestly, best free agent you can pick up. Best free
Superb.
agent by a mile.
So good. So good.
Fantastic in draft mode as well.
Yeah,
Pick
yeah,
him up.
Mhm.
He's dead cheap.
yeah. And
Mhm.
clearly, obviously, a very good Premier League goalkeeper because he's number 4
Yes.
on the list.
Mm.
Yeah. So maybe shouldn't have released him, Man United. If you're listening, Glazers, which I know you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
They love the pod.
Mhm.
Do you want to come on? if they are listening, Glazers, do you want to come on the
Come on
pod?
come on for a chat.
Come
Yeah.
on for a chat?
If you're
Yeah.
free.
There you go.
Lend
And
us
then,
a
yeah,
tenner.
Wonderful.
You know.
and
Yeah,
then
absolutely. Absolutely. And then we'll use it to buy back David De Gea. I don't know. We can't really offer that.
get De Gea on the
Collectively,
pod.
to get De Gea on the pod. That's the move.
Yeah.
There you go. That makes sense. I've really enjoyed that, but I also feel a bit silly now.
Honestly, when we did the goal scorers top 10, I felt like such an idiot through most of it because there were so many names going around. I was like, surely not. They're probably not on the list. I mean, you alluded to it before. Yeah, I didn't say Harry Kane, Harry Kane didn't come out of my mouth, and because I'd forgot he wasn't in the Prem. My brain went, well, he's never played here. Of course, he hasn't.
Never played in it. No,
he's never played in the Prem. He plays for Bayern. So yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you, Rich.
I love that though. Congratulations, Stakey. Excellent goalkeeping knowledge. Excellent goalkeeping knowledge. I will now go and look at pictures of Premier League goalkeepers as my penance. My Jermaine penance. Furious about it.
See, that's a title waiting to be used. Surely,
it's up there, isn't there? I'll have to go back and check to make sure it hasn't been used previously, because I feel like that was in my brain already from somewhere, and it might have been this. It might be somewhere else. So, if it's steal it, who cares? Not me. I've got the best Jermaine penance lawyers in the country. How dare you? Can't be stopped. It's Jermaine. The irony is it's Jermaine penance. Right, fellas. That very much feels like a podcast to me. We've had a really, really good chat. We've plugged something, and I've lost a quiz. That is classic FMT. Yeah. There it is in a nutshell. Before we go though, before we do leave, Stakey, if the people would like to watch you Pokemoning, football managing on the internet, where can they find you doing so?
Mostly on Twitch, twitch.tv/the_steak_bake. And that's not the word underscore, it's the character underscore. And then at the steak bake on every other social media platform as well. But make sure as well you check out our other two podcast Booderinos, Y Callum and Jebaroo, who are both awesome and fantastic human beings as well.
Ahoy there. Couldn't agree more. Absolute beauties, the pair of them. Absolute beauties. Dee, what about you? You're on the med. You're building a factory. You can't be stopped.
Yeah. You're just doing everything. Yeah. I'm ending Pokemon's lives accidentally in the Nuzlocke run with the boys as well. If you want to come and hang out, though, you can do so at twitch.tv/dboyplays.
I'd encourage you to do so. It's a wonderful, wonderful time. Twitch.tv/RichOwensFM. That's me. Watch or don't. I'm not your dad. Can't make you, but I'd appreciate it if you did.
You are most people's mum's favourite, though.
True. Mums love me. I love mums. Specifically, the mother of my children.
Good save. Very good save.
Thank you. Other mothers, love you. She's out there somewhere. Parenting while I'm doing this. She's a good human. I love her. And possibly others. No, mainly her. I'm too tired to do anything else. That very succinctly wraps up another episode of Football Manager Therapy. Thank you very much for listening, for watching. However you are consuming this podcast, we appreciate you enormously, and we will see you on the next one. Take care. Love you lots. Bye-bye.